I wasn't really sure if I wanted to make this video. I went back and forth about it because I wasn't sure how realistic this would be. But a few weeks back, a company reached out to me that they make cases for video game hardware like the Steam Deck and that kind of thing. And it's a company that I've worked with before. It's iVoller. All right. They reached out to me and they said, hey, we have a model of the Nintendo Switch 2 and we would love for you to have one. Do you want it? And I replied to them, yeah, if I make a video about the Switch 2, I'll gladly, show this model off in the video. No big deal. Go ahead and send it if you want. It arrived and I opened it up and I was like, holy cow. Okay, this is way more interesting than I thought, because I was just anticipating getting a big slab of plastic, because that's how you get these models. It's a big plastic 3D printed slab, right? But no, take a look at this. This is the Nintendo Switch 2 model from iVoller. Whether or not it's legitimate or not, I will leave it up to you, and I'll talk about why I do think it's legitimate in a little bit. But I mean, look at this. It has glass. There's glass on it. That surprised me. I just thought it was going to be a 3D printed thing. And then the Joy-Cons, they come off and they clip back in with a magnet. And I was like, okay, that is way more interesting than I originally thought it was going to be. So suddenly my likelihood of making a video was higher. But then I was like, well, I don't know if I really want to talk about rumors and speculation for this, so maybe I'm going to hold off. And this has been sitting on my desk for a couple weeks at this point. But then I saw the leaks from Dbrand, and I looked at those leaks from Dbrand, and they matched what I have here on my desk almost perfectly, other than the Dbrand leaks, I believe, showed a red and blue set of Joy-Cons, and these Joy-Cons are white. That was really the only difference between the two. So I was very, very interested suddenly in making a video about that, which is why you're watching this now. So let's talk about what I've got with this model for the Nintendo Switch. Now, iVoller is not sponsoring this video. They're not going to see it ahead of time. They don't get to tell me what to say or anything like that. But one thing that they did say after the fact, and I could have just said no, but I like their stuff, and so I decided to say yes. They wanted me to show off their case. So here's their Nintendo Switch 2 case, and there's a link down below if you want to learn more about it. But it's a case. It's not anything fancy or anything. You just open it up. It fits the Nintendo Switch 2. It's got a little cover to cover up the glass, and then you can zip it closed, and that all seems great. They didn't sponsor this video, but this video does have a sponsor, and that's coming up right now. Bill, there's a sniper on your right. Take him out. Where? I don't see him. To your right. To your right. I look to my right. Where? Oh.
How did you miss him? What were you looking at?
We wouldn't have to worry what I was looking at if I'd been using the Tobii Eye Tracker 5, which is the next-gen head and eye tracking gear from Tobii. The Eye Tracker 5 gives you more immersion in your favorite games like Star Citizen, Microsoft Flight Simulator, or Far Cry 6. It works in all lighting conditions, so if you're a streamer with bright studio lights, or if you're sitting in pitch black, it can see you no matter what, and it can see what you're looking at. For eye tracking, it works on up to 30-inch screens, but if you got an even bigger screen, the sky's the limit with its head tracking features. It works with curved screen, it has Windows Hello support, and it does not require you to wear anything in order to track your movements. And even better, if you wear glasses, it can still track both head and eye movements. If you're a content creator like me, it can show your audience where you're looking on the screen. If you stream on Twitch, your viewers can turn it on and off themselves, just like closed captioning. And they can even customize how it looks for them without ruining anyone else's experience. With over 170 enhanced games and features like tagging enemies just by looking at them or controlling in-game cameras with head movements, it is a really unique experience. It comes with everything you need, including the cables and the mounts for your monitors. And currently, Tobii has a Christmas campaign where the Tobii Eye Tracker 5 will be at 20% off from December 16th through January 3rd. And they have a sweepstake where you can win prizes, including a Tracker 5 during that campaign. Links to both of these will be in the description down below, so make sure that you check that out and you can get 20% off. And I looked at the leak from dbrand, and it was very, very similar to what I was seeing with the one that I had in hand here. So I thought I would show it off on screen and talk about what are the differences between this and the Nintendo Switch, and what do I think of it. So let's put it on screen so that we can take a look, because everything that I'm seeing on this is extremely similar to what we're seeing on the dbrand leak. So first off, let's talk about the Joy-Cons. Let's look at the right Joy-Con first. There we go. Here's the right Joy-Con, and the right Joy-Con has our home button right there. Let me zoom in on this. It has our home button right there. It also has a C button right there. And then it's got our face buttons and the plus button. You can see right here, we've got our ZL and our ZR. Those are those little buttons that you would hold if you're holding this sideways and playing like this. And then if you flip it over, we have our bumper and our trigger. The trigger doesn't look like it has a whole lot of throw to it. So I am assuming that this is also a digital trigger, just like the original Nintendo Switch, because there's absolutely no throw there. Now, could they put a real trigger on there that had actual throw? I'm sure that they could. But I'm going to suspect that Nintendo is going to ignore the idea of analog triggers, and they're going to stick with digital triggers. Now, if you're paying close attention, you probably also saw there's another little trigger right here. Now, here's my speculation, because we've seen a lot of rumors talking about the Nintendo Switch and the fact that they would have electromagnets, and those electromagnets would be how you would attach the Joy-Con. So first off, how does that work? So if you look right here, you can see on the Nintendo Switch, the body itself, it's got like this deep well, and then the Joy-Con has this big black area right here, and those just snap in. It's instead of sliding down, it goes into this little socket, and then the magnets hold it in place. And if that's the case, if that's the only thing that's holding it in place is this magnet, which is very, very easy to pull apart, then I think that that's a horrible design. But if you look right here, we've got this extra little trigger. And that trigger, I'm assuming, is the way that we remove the Joy-Con from the unit itself. So I would pull on this trigger right here, and it would disengage some kind of lock, and then I'd be able to pull it off. Now, this is not a real Nintendo Switch. This is just a big dummy unit, and I'm a big dummy, so that's my thoughts on how that is going to attach. And honestly, it feels pretty good. You're holding it in your hand, being able to take it off quickly without having to worry about that sliding thing getting weaker over time. I think that's good. Let's take a look at the left Joy-Con. The left Joy-Con looks just like the left Joy-Con on the regular Nintendo Switch. The big difference is it's just a little bit taller. It has our minus button. It's got our thumbstick. It's got our D-pad, which is split into 4 buttons. And then we've got our capture button right there. On the back, pretty much the same thing. We've got I'm assuming the release button and the trigger and the bumper. And if we pull that off of there, you can see that we've got these little buttons right here. Let me bring this up so you can see it. We've got these little buttons right here, which are our ZL and our ZR. Now, if you look right here, we've got these, and I'm not sure what these are, but I would guess that maybe that's where like the locking mechanism will lock into place, but that remains to be seen. All right, so now let's take a look at the top of the Nintendo Switch. You see over here, we've got our power button, and then we've got our volume rocker. It looks to me like this is going to be our headphone jack right there. Then this, I'm guessing, is maybe a microphone. And then we've got our air vents to expel air out of the top of the system. Well, actually, maybe this is the headphone jack. I'm not sure. One of these is definitely a headphone jack, and I don't know which one. And then over here, we've got our USB-C port, and then the slot for the Nintendo Switch cartridges, which looks around the same size as a traditional Switch. So let me set that down and put the Nintendo Switch next to it. And actually, if we look at the top, yeah, this is probably the headphone jack right there, because there's our headphone jack on the Nintendo Switch. I don't know what this is. Maybe that's a light sensor, and that's what we're seeing over here. I can't remember. I've not used my Nintendo Switch in a really long time because I've just been playing games on my Steam Deck or my PC instead, or my PlayStation. But there's the two next to each other. Let's put the regular Switch aside for now, and we're going to flip over and take a look at the bottom of the Nintendo Switch 2. And you can see here, sorry for the cat hair, you can see here that we have another USB-C port on the bottom. So now the Nintendo Switch has two USB-C ports. So let's take a second and speculate about why would the Nintendo Switch have two USB-C ports. And I'm going to see a bunch of people that are thinking about accessories and that kind of thing. But I got to be honest with you, I think that Nintendo is only going to be doing, the bottom port is to dock it, and the top port is to charge it, and the bottom port is to charge it. So like you could charge it in either, and I don't see them putting a bunch of extra crap and the USB-C port on the top. The one thing that I would say that I might speculate about is maybe it would be so that you could have USB-C headphones, because a lot of us have USB-C headphones these days for our phones. If we don't have wireless headphones, very few phones these days actually have headphone jacks, and they know that a lot of people get their headphones from when they buy their phone or something like that. Not everybody's walking around with expensive headphones, and so a lot of people are just they're stuck with USB-C. So maybe that's so you can plug USB-C headphones in the top, although I have to be honest, for me, I would prefer to plug things like that in the bottom. I still personally think that the top is just for charging, but we'll see. All right, let's do a quick size comparison. Both systems on screen at the same time, and here we go. You can see it right now. You can see the Nintendo Switch 2 is a good deal larger than the Nintendo Switch 1. This is the OLED Nintendo Switch, by the way. So this has that. I don't remember how big the Nintendo Switch screen is, but I think the original Nintendo Switch was 6.3, and then they went up to a 7-inch screen on the Nintendo Switch OLED. So this looks to be like an 8-inch screen. Actually, let me go get a tape measure and I'll find out. Yeah, so if I'm measuring this, it looks to be about 7.9 or maybe 8 inches diagonal for the Nintendo Switch 2, which I think is pretty good. Now, when I look at this dummy, the thing that I notice about it is that it is very, very skinny. It's about the same thickness as the Nintendo Switch. So let me take the Joy-Cons off of both systems, and we'll put them side by side on screen here. And you can see that they are roughly the same thickness. Like, that is almost identical. So what are they going to have problems with? Well, number one, they'll have problems with heat. So that means that they're going to probably thermally throttle the Nintendo Switch 2 when you are playing in handheld, because they don't want to have to worry too much about heat. Secondly, it's very thin, so the battery in it's not going to be very big. Again, the Nintendo Switch is a 7-year-old device, and when it actually launched, it was already an old device. It's old hardware. I anticipate the Nintendo will be doing the exact same thing with the Nintendo Switch 2. They're going to be shipping it to be very low power. It will run Nintendo games fantastically well because Nintendo are the kings of optimization. But I think a lot of AAA stuff from other publishers, they'll get it working on here, but it'll be the worst version of it, just like it is on the current Nintendo Switch. Back when the Nintendo Switch was, when it first came out, the thing about it was the only way that you could really take your games with you on the go. And if you wanted to play a game like The Witcher 3, for instance, and be able to play it in a handheld form factor, you only really had one option, and that was the Nintendo Switch. Well, these days, we have a lot of options. So for Nintendo to go from this to this, I think might be a misstep. Of course, I also have to remember that I live in this bubble of PC handhelds, which are not widespread. Like most people, you show them a Steam Deck and they'll be like, that's a weird looking Nintendo Switch. And I understand that. So most people, they're going to look at the Nintendo Switch 2, if this is indeed what the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be. And they're going to look at it and say, oh, it's a bigger screen than the Nintendo Switch. And it plays games a little bit better than the Nintendo Switch. I'm sold. I'll buy that in addition to having a PlayStation, or I'll buy that in addition to having an Xbox. And Nintendo, I think what they're doing here is effectively saying, we don't really care about what's happening in the PC industry these days, and it's uninteresting to us. So we're not going to try and compete with them. And that is what Nintendo does best, is just saying, we're going to do our own thing. Sometimes it pays off in spades, like it did with the Nintendo Switch, and sometimes they fall on their face, like it did with the Wii U. I don't know which one's going to happen this time, but one thing I will say is I like Nintendo games, and I'm going to play Nintendo games on the Nintendo Switch or the Nintendo Switch 2, because that's the easiest way to do it. Yes, I could buy the games, use that thing that I won't mention because I don't want Nintendo coming after me, to rip it and then play those games on my Steam Deck or my ROG Ally X or even on my PC. But that's too much work for me. I'm not interested in that. I just want to go either buy a cartridge or buy something on the eShop and then play it on here. The big difference for me this time around when it comes to the Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo Switch 2 is on the Nintendo Switch, I bought tons of third-party games on this system. These days, almost all of those games are also going to be on Steam, so I'll just buy them on that, play them on my Steam Deck or my ROG Ally. And the Nintendo Switch 2, this thing is going to be reserved for just Nintendo and Nintendo only. And, if there's a couple of third-party exclusives that are on there that are interesting to me, then maybe those too. But I really don't see that happening. For me, the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be a Nintendo machine, and I'm okay with that. And one of the main reasons that I never play games on my Switch anymore is the Joy-Cons. The Joy-Cons are fine, but when you put the Joy-Cons on your Nintendo Switch, they're just not comfortable to hold. Like, this is an uncomfortable way to play. I will say one thing that I find comfortable that a lot of people disagree with me on. I think this is a very comfortable way to play. And when I hold these Joy-Cons in my hand like this, and I'm, putting my thumbs on the sticks as if I'm going to play a shooter or something like that, this feels super comfortable. I really like the way that these feel. And then around on the back, we have what looks like to be the revised kickstand from the Switch OLED version. You can see here the OLED version of the kickstand, which is a really, really nice kickstand, a huge step up from the LCD Switch. This one has a kickstand that looks to be identical to that. And overall, I think this is very interesting. One thing I will note is that I see output for fans. I'm not seeing input anywhere. But if you look at the original Nintendo Switch, they did have... Did they? Yeah, I think that right here, there may be input for a fan right there, so the air can get in and then be vented out the top. So I'm guessing that you'll also have the same thing here, but because this is a 3D printed model, you can't actually open that part. So that's what I'm thinking is going on there. But what do you think about the Nintendo Switch 2, this model? Number one, do you think it's true? What do you think this weird button that is labeled, I'll put it on the screen here for you, C, what do you think that C button is for? And do you think I'm correct about these weird triggers right here? Let me know in the comments down below. And of course, if it's your first time here, please subscribe. And before you go, check out this video right here. YouTube picked it just for you. From the Nerd Nest, I'm Bill. Stay rad, and thanks for watching.